Welcome to Treadmill Talks with Shannon Maves, a podcast for athletes and fitness enthusiasts to pass the time during mind-numbing cardio while I use my no-bullshit coaching style to educate, inspire, and entertain. I'm your host, Shannon Maves. Now let's walk and talk. Hello and welcome to episode 71 of Treadmill Talks, the one about traveling during prep. Competition prep is already challenging enough. And when you have to travel out of town, either for your competition or for any other reason, it can add in even more stress. But if you simply plan ahead, as much as you possibly can at least, the stress can be minimized quite a bit. So my goal for this episode is to hopefully teach you something that will help you during your travels, during your competition prep. The first thing I would suggest is booking a hotel with a gym, or at least staying at a place that has a gym nearby that you can get a day pass for. If for whatever reason that isn't possible, like, I don't know, maybe you're camping or something, I would say bring some equipment with you. Resistance bands are super easy to pack and travel with since they're very light. And yes, you can get a pretty solid workout with just resistance bands. I'd also recommend being conscientious about your activity level while you're away. If you're traveling for a vacation during prep, you don't want to be too lazy by the pool all day. You're going to want to make sure that you're at least getting in your usual daily steps, unless otherwise specified by your coach, of course. And on the other hand, if you're traveling for your own competition and you're going somewhere new and fun and you want to explore before the show, don't explore too much before the show. At least not explore on your feet, because walking a lot can cause inflammation and water retention. And I made this mistake when I competed at USA's in Vegas. We romped around the strip after I did my check-ins, and I accidentally got in a few thousand more steps than I meant to. And I had to spend the rest of the evening before the show with my feet propped up against the wall to try to get all of that fluid back down. That's a more specific scenario, though. Although I'm sure most bikini competitors will want to be mindful about their activity level during peak week. During like a more normal vacation, though, you're probably going to want to keep your activity level up. So not only do you want to make sure that you can stay on top of your workouts and cardio, but your overall daily activity as well. On your actual travel days, I highly recommend getting in as much activity as possible before you travel. Get your workout and your cardio in, and then make it a goal to hit a certain amount of steps while you're waiting at the airport or something. That way you can get on your flight and feel good about just chilling. If you're driving, the same type of thing goes, except that you obviously can't pace around the airport. So I'd recommend, getting your workouts and cardio in before you leave, and then maybe taking frequent stops to get up and move, which you're probably going to want to do anyways, since competitors have to pee a lot during prep. But to be honest, workouts, cardio, and overall activity level aren't usually the things that people struggle with when they travel, at least not competitors. It's the nutrition piece that can get to be trickier. But I've got some good tips to help you stay on track with this. The first one being plan ahead. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Have at least an idea of what you're going to eat, whether you're going to pack it yourself or eat when you get there. Just have a plan, especially with your protein, because protein is generally the hardest macro to hit already. And when you're traveling, it can become even more of a challenge. So do some research on where you're going and where you can go out to eat to get your protein. My recommendations for this are to either bring your own, in which case I would suggest freezing it so that it stays good during your travel. Or you can have a meal prep delivery service bring your food to your hotel or wherever you're staying. Or a little pro tip that you may not have heard before is to special order from a Chinese restaurant. Most Chinese restaurants are going to have chicken breast, rice, and veggies. And they're usually pretty good about having steamed options, which means no added oils and shit. You just need to be sure to ask for no sauces or the sauces on the side. And I mean, I do think that bringing your own food is generally going to be the best option, especially if it's peak week and you're traveling for your own show. But like I said, just freeze anything that you're able to. But maybe just have a backup plan like a Chinese restaurant just in case. Because, I mean, flights can get delayed, cars can break down, and other bullshit can unfortunately happen when you're traveling. Obviously, we all hope it doesn't, but when it comes to prep, it's all about planning. And sometimes that means planning for the worst just in case. Now, if you're driving, then bringing your own food is pretty easy because you can just pack a fucking cooler and call it a day. But when you're flying, it can be a little bit trickier because there are some limitations on what you can bring in your carry-on. And you also don't want to have to pay to check some heavy ass cooler full of food. So what I like to do is pack a good portion of my food into my checked bag and then bring just what I need for the day in my carry-on. Being careful of like liquids and shit because things like peanut butter and yogurt are stupidly considered liquids. But if you have a completely frozen ice pack, that's allowed. But it has to be completely frozen, though. It's stupid. I know. I don't make the rules. Oh, and when you're booking your hotel, in addition to looking for a place with a gym, try to find one with a full kitchen too, if possible. Having a full-sized fridge is amazing when you're bringing all of your prepped food. And if you like to cook things fresh or you're having stuff delivered to your room, it's really nice to have an oven and a stove and a dishwasher too, so that you're not having to travel back home with a bunch of dirty Tupperware. Microwaves are pretty great to have too. Even though I know plenty of competitors who are not picky about eating cold food, having a microwave in your room is definitely nice, especially if you're staying at the host hotel for a show and they have some shared microwave situation going on in the lobby. That shit can be a total clusterfuck because you've either got people waiting in line just to use a microwave and or the microwave down there is disgusting from people not covering their food or heating up their fucking nasty fish or something. I'm ridiculous with this. I actually drove to LA and brought my own microwave with me when I found out that my hotel room wasn't going to have one. I mean, I was driving, so it wasn't like a huge deal, but I do understand how insane that sounds when I tell the story. But it's not as insane as another competitor that I know who flew for a competition, got to her hotel room, found out there was no microwave, and she did an Instacart order from Walmart to have a microwave delivered to her room. I mean, you do you. Honestly, I think it's fucking awesome. I just can't justify spending money on a microwave that I'm going to have to leave in a hotel room when I check out. But to be fair, she was also competing at a much higher level than me. So she obviously needed all of her meals to be like on point. And another thing that I've heard of competitors doing, which is quite a bit more reasonable than driving with your own microwave or purchasing one for the weekend, is packing something called a Hot Logic. It's this little insulated cooler thing, but it actually plugs in and heats up. Like so much so that you can actually cook with it. It does take quite a bit longer to cook, but I know some people who love these things. And I did use an off brand of one before, and it worked pretty well, but maybe it's because I used the off brand. I don't know, but I thought it made my food taste weird. So that is not my favorite option, but it is an option. And maybe the actual Hot Logic brand wouldn't have done that. So you can give it a try and let me know. Now, a couple of other things that I want to mention about competition travel are more specific to when you are traveling for your own show. Because traveling during peak week is definitely more stressful than traveling during other times of prep. First, I would recommend traveling as far ahead of time as you can. If your show is on Saturday, I would not recommend traveling on Friday unless you absolutely have to because of work or something. The first reason being is that shit can go wrong. There can be flight delays, cars can break down, etc. So I definitely recommend giving yourself some buffer time so that you don't miss your show or your check-in. Now, the second reason is that traveling can cause inflammation and water retention. So if you arrive a couple days ahead of time, you give your body a chance to relax and let go of some of that before show day. And my last tip for traveling for your own show is to pack all of your important shit in your carry-on. Your suit, your heels, and anything else that is like irreplaceable needs to stay on you at all times. Do not check that shit. I mean, if the airline loses your bag and your suit is in it, what the fuck are you going to do? Like maybe somebody at the show has a backup suit you can wear, but it's not going to fit as well or be the color that you're going to look your best in. I'm a psychopath again. I already was with the microwave, but I'm also just like so over prepared for all of my shows at this point because I've done so many of them now. I have extra suits, extra heels, extra jewelry, and extra just everything. So I literally have my suit, my heels, and whatever else in my carry-on, as well as a backup suit and backup heels in my checked bag. Because I'm just not about to fuck around with any chances after I've busted my ass for so long. So you can call me crazy, but I think my competition clients have definitely appreciated my crazy ass when they get an individualized, detailed checklist of everything they need for show day and traveling with their peak week protocols. Some call it obsessive. I call it passionate. Anywho, I hope this episode was helpful and you learned some type of new trick to help ease the stress for your next travels during prep. I'd actually love to know which of these tips was most helpful for you. And also, if you guys have any other tips that I didn't mention, send me a DM and let me know what they are. I'd also love if you would take just a moment to share this episode or leave a rating or review. And if you aren't already, please give Treadmill Talks a follow so that we can get it bumped up higher on the podcast platforms. And if you're a competitor or someone who is thinking about competing and you want a coach who is hyper vigilant about making sure that you have checked all of your boxes, then you can click the link in the show notes to apply to work with me. Thank you for listening to Treadmill Talks. If this episode taught you something, lit a fire under your ass, or at least helped you forget how long you've been walking in place, please leave a review or take a screenshot to share on your social media. Don't forget to tag me at Shannon Maves so I can give you some love right back. And thanks again for listening to my Treadmill Talk.